if you see a bread machine cheap somewhere or you have one hanging out in the back of your cabinet, it's definitely worth getting it out to try this recipe. This Hawaiian bread recipe is super, super easy, but comes out amazing. You're going to start out with 2 6-ounce cans of pineapple juice or 1.5 cups, 2 tablespoons of honey, 1 packet of yeast, a tablespoon of unsalted butter, 1 egg, 3 tablespoons of dried milk, 4 cups of bread flour, and 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt. For the yeast, I usually buy it in 1 pound amounts in warehouse clubs or something like that. So for that, you'd use 2 1/4 teaspoons. First thing is you want to familiarize yourself with the directions for your machine. They all come with a booklet, and you don't have to memorize the booklet or study it or anything, but at least get yourself pretty familiar with the settings and things like that. Don't forget, the first step you want to do is add your little mixing blade before you put any of your ingredients in. This gets to be a pain if you've already added your ingredients, and I have done that on multiple occasions, so put that in there first. And then you're going to add your pineapple juice and the egg into the mixing bowl. And this is formulated to just use 2 of the little 6-ounce cans, but you can also just use a 1.5 cups. If you were using pineapple juice that's been in the fridge, let it come to room temperature. Some directions say to add the dry ingredients first, but I add the wet first because I found if you add the dry first, it just never completely mixes very well. So add that liquid ingredients in the bottom and it will mix a lot better. By the way, if you do not have a bread machine and want one, check Ollie's Bargain Outlet if you have one of those, or check yard sales, or just check the back of your grandma's closet or parents' closet. Somebody you know probably has one they don't want. Then you're going to add the honey and butter into your pan, and you can whisk it at this point, but you don't necessarily need to. We're going to whisk it after the next step to incorporate the dried milk. Dried milk, after it's sat around for a little while, has a tendency to get a couple of clumps, so we are going to break up those clumps a little bit just to make sure that they don't stay together in that process of mixing. And I just kind of press them up against the sides to make sure that they are not going to stay chunky in the process. So when you add your flour, bread flour is going to lead to a firmer, tougher loaf, and all-purpose is going to be a little bit softer, so that's going to be determined by whether you're going to be making sandwiches with this or just using it kind of as a bread to eat with your meals. So I add all the ingredients outside of the machine to keep the inside of my machine as clean as possible, because the machine is an oven and everything else, and you don't want flour floofing everywhere. And then I add my salt on top of the flour, and that's going to keep the salt from having direct contact with your yeast. And that way you're not going to risk that salt directly killing your yeast from having that direct contact with it. So then you're going to pop that pan into the machine. You want to gently pop it in there so that you're not tilting it too much and running any of your ingredients into the bottom. And make sure it is fully locked in place. It does have to kind of snap in there. Usually you have to press it into the bottom, and there's 2 little clips on the top. And then this is going to be set for a 2-pound white bread loaf. You can set the doneness for darker or lighter. Because there's a good amount of sugar in this, you may want to set it a little bit lighter, just because it does tend to brown a little bit more than others. And then at this point, I always make sure that my ingredients are actually moving, because it's going to make sure that your pan is set into the machine properly. And as long as your ingredients are moving around, then you just close your lid and let it roll. While it's mixing, it's going to look like this, and it might be a little imbalanced. It might look a little bit wonky. It'll all come out in the wash. Don't worry about it too much. But as it's going to follow its own little procedure of mixing together, and then it's going to rise, then it's going to knead for a little bit, and then it's going to rise again. The whole process takes about 3 hours and 15 minutes, depending on what bake time that you choose and what type of loaf that you're going to be doing. While we are waiting for this process to complete, go ahead and click that subscribe button. We are trying to grow that channel, so that'll help us out a whole lot. So after you have completed the whole process, you want to let it cool a good bit. You can take it out the pan when it's a little bit warm, but you do want it to be cool to the touch so that it's not going to burn you as you're removing it. And if you rock it back and forth a little bit, it'll pop out a little bit easier, and kind of gently pull it out of the pan. And you may have to use a butter knife to pop the mixing blade out of the loaf. This particular loaf, the blade stayed in the bottom, but sometimes it does stay in the loaf, and you want to make sure you remove that because you don't want to, as you're cutting the bread, have your knife roll into it. So just remember that that mixing blade is in there. So like I said, it stayed in there this time, but always make sure that the mixing blade is accounted for. You're going to cut it with a serrated bread knife. You will have like a little divot in the bottom of the loaf for the mixing blade, but it's a little bit of an inconvenience, not too big of a deal. And you do want to make sure that it's cooled off before you cut it. This ends up being a really nice, pretty high loaf of bread, and it has a little bit of a sweetness to it, and it's really fun to just put ingredients into a machine and press play, and 3 hours later have a loaf of bread. It makes your house smell really nice, and I'm not a big fan of unitaskers, but I really do love a bread machine. So this is just a reminder that we do have our 2 membership levels that we would love you to be a part of. We have our 20-quart and 5-quart levels just to give you a chance to engage more directly with our community, to get early access to our videos. You get access as soon as we upload them. Otherwise, hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. Thank you so much for watching Mixing with Merks, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next week.